Good morning, good evening, good day, good night, good everything, almost good Friday. My name is Jason Weiss, and we are here on the Ask Jason Weiss show. Now, as you all know, I am an attorney by trade. I'm an attorney by education. I'm an attorney by schooling. I'm an attorney by profession. But today, there is no legal advice given. And this is just purely for entertainment and education purposes. Nothing today is legal advice. Should you need legal advice, financial advice, or any advice, go consult an attorney or hire somebody directly. Nothing today is privileged. Nothing today is legal advice. And everything today is just going to be a lot of fun where we're talking about building, we're talking about art, we're talking about music, and we're going to talk about community. So with all of that said, I have with me today Chris Hare, who Chris is a dynamic entrepreneur and a creative force in Rockford, Illinois. He's the founder of the 662, and I'm just going to say it that way, 662 Collective. And it's this crazy, cool, awesome art gallery and event space that is on 331 East State Street. The venue is a cultural hub. They do fashion shows, art shows, wellness shows, all this kind of stuff. And he's using the space to get people in. You get art, you see exhibits, you do great stuff. And he also has his platform. It's called 662online.com, and it's dedicated to music, news, and vintage culture. And it is just really neat. And I've spent a couple of hours checking it out and reading some of the blogs and the posts, and it's great stuff. So without further ado, one of the strongest men on the planet, Chris Hare. And I say that because Chris is the ultimate family man, right? Ultimate family man. So Chris, let's start there. Why do our viewers think I'm calling you the ultimate family man? You have to have an idea.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Me and my wife have a total of 6 kids. And we have actually 3 that are in college right now that are girls, very smart and get a lot of scholarships and stuff. So we don't have to come out of pocket for that. So that makes it amazing. We have another one that's going to be attending college this fall. So that'll be 4 different girls at 4 different colleges at all different levels. 3 that'll be in grad school, actually. And 2 boys, one that's in high school and one that's a 5th grader, who both of those play sports. And between all of that, we're constantly busy with sports practices and school functions and all kinds of stuff that keeps us absolutely busy.
And I'm guessing you're a pretty good shot, if necessary, with 4 girls there, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I definitely have a
I only have one. I only have one. She's 15, but all I know is that, I'm making sure my shot is accurate. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, that's a good way to live when you have 6 kids and 4 daughters. Yeah, you definitely have to be ready.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about you as the ultimate family man, right? So you grew up you grew up in
Rockford,
where did you grow up? Illinois. So you grew up in Illinois, and you were raised by your mom and your grandmother, correct?
Correct.
So these are 2 powerful women and strong women that took care of you and made sure that you are the man you are today. And you grew up just, loving, like comedy, like David Letterman and that kind of things, and entertainment and all of this. And you started following some of the music that I grew up with, like with Tupac and Michael Jackson, Madonna. And it sounds like we're in the same realm, right? Nintendo, McDonald's, all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
So you grow up with a passion for, I guess, arts and entertainment, and and here you are today, multiple years later, still in the arts and entertainment, world and realm. So fill in that gap, from when you started working to where you are today. Let's let some of these listeners know how you got there. What is the journey of Chris?
Okay, that's a good one. So, as a kid, I like to watch a lot of news, Entertainment Tonight, and Dave Letterman. I probably was one of the only kids who spent a lot of time watching that stuff. So I
You were
became,
the only one allowed up past 10 o'clock in order to
yeah,
watch Letterman, right? I had a 10:30. I'm just
yeah,
I'm there's some joke there, but some
yeah,
serious
sure.
there. So I got you. So you're watching Letterman, following the news like all good kids in the '80s should be doing.
Yeah, and also, I feel like there was a pop culture experiment that was going on during that time frame in the 80s where they were introducing, the different styles of music and clothes and entertainment and video games. Everything was kind of like in your face to where when you get older, you realize, man, that had this huge effect on my life. So I was just randomly, accidentally being real nerdy about how I followed news, or even when it was like a CD or a tape first and then CDs, I'm looking at the credits first before I get into, the actual songs. I wanted to know who produced, the music, who produced the TV shows. I was always just interested in the depth of all entertainment and arts. So as I got older, I got into, listening to different styles of music that eventually led to hip hop. Obviously, was a huge experiment on our generation as well, and it had an effect on me. So I was able to, learn and understand a variety of different things through music, and liked everything, and from rock music and rap to it became about like Tupac and this effect that music had on our generation was a lot different than what it is now. It's so watered down that you can't really be like inspired or influenced as much as you were back then. Plus, you used to get judged for it. So, just so you know, back then you could get in trouble for having a rap tape, especially a Tupac tape. That would get you in some pretty big trouble from the parents, and people like to judge that or whatnot. So,
I listened to Body Count
oh,
when I was
Ice-T.
growing up. So that was old Ice-T, and they had that and we're not going to talk about the controversial song and lyrics, but there were things that if you were driving, it reminded me of from Footloose, right? When he's driving and he's listening to he says he's listening to the Police, and they're on me, and he's listening to Quiet Riot, and they pull him over because his music was too loud, and you can't dance, and believe it or not, that stuff was real. Not in Brooklyn where I grew up, but that stuff was real. And music did shape society, and it continues to shape society. But so let's get into that more. So you're listening to Tupac and you're growing up, and you just finished your episode of Letterman. So what's next?
So I think that the next thing that kind of got me to where I'm at was being interested in like Death Row Records and the whole way it encapsulated the media and everything, and used to think, man, if I were to ever do, a record label, what would I want to call it? And, you used to have these kind of dreams about different things when you would listen to this music and read the magazines, which were always 30 days behind compared to now where you find out everything 30 seconds later. But that kind of just evolved into a variety of different thought patterns. And I started reading books, read a lot of books about a lot of different individual businessmen and people ranging from, I don't know, Howard Hughes to Richard Nixon, even reading a lot about him, to mafia guys from Chicago and New York, where I discovered John Gotti and his crew grew up in New York, where they called their little group was a borgata, was a Sicilian slang term for like a gang or a crew. So as I got a little older, then I was like, well, if I start a record company, it's going to be called Borgata Records, because I was trying to mix the things that I was, influenced by. And then obviously Suge Knight had his thing, and he had his club 662, which was members of Bloods for his thing. And so then I combined it to members of Borgata. And the next thing you know, one day I came across a friend who knew some producers, and I was like, I'll jump on this opportunity to meet them. Next thing you know, I was kind of backing these guys from Chicago, and boom, it was like, okay, what are we going to call this? And it was Borgata Records. Used the acronym 662 very slowly back in the day, and it just kind of evolved from that point on, actually. So this is early 2000s. And then I got into a lot of record producing, executive producing, promoting shows, traveling around the country. I'm not really sure how it all happened, but I was all over the place. And we had shows everywhere. It wasn't like now, there was no social media. So it was literally grinding it out and emailing people from their websites and hoping that they responded. And that's how it started. And then throughout that time, I realized a lot of people would contact me to book shows and to, ask me for marketing advice and can you promote me? Can you do this? And then that's when in around 2010, I started the 662 online news and entertainment site where I could promote all of the people that I had been networking with for the prior 10 years and then use news and entertainment as a clickbait to draw people to the website every day. Because if you have a record label site, you really only go to it once, maybe twice. But if I'm giving content every day, then you can see that content every day, but also see the people that I was working with to give them that, that exposure.
And just for those that didn't catch it or couldn't write it down fast enough, it's 662online.com. So the number 6, the number 6, the number 2, online.com. 662online.com. And you can always find Chris at Chris Hare 662 at gmail.com. Very creative doing that. And what kind of things are you covering and talking about on 662online.com? Like, what are some of the topics that you discuss?
So I like to cover movie trailers, music videos. I'll cover when anything that's like in the news, if somebody especially gets like arrested or in trouble, things that I find trending that I want to try to cover right away. But I also try to stick to a certain like realm of who I promote. So like, I won't do like big things per se when it comes to music, say like Drake or these kind of people that have so much.
Kendrick Lamar, the two, you got to put them in the same sentence, Drake and Kendrick Lamar, every sentence.
Well, they get so much exposure and it's good clickbait to draw it in, but I try to have it more niche, and so if there's different people that I like to listen to and follow, maybe it's like Russ or G-Eazy or, some Mortal Technique as he was coming up back in the day. I like to promote him a lot, or different people that are on that level of almost famous, getting ready to get famous, and then they're kind of there before they go to pop, But now back, I used to like to cover like Charlie Sheen a lot when he was, back, years ago when he was in the news.
Winning, right? Yeah. Winning. I got the t-shirt, believe it or not, still have it in my closet.
Yeah. So I like to just stick with things that are a little controversial if I'm covering a particular person or stuff that particularly interests me or something that, someone I trust will say, hey, check this out. Can you post it? And, then I'll post that kind of stuff, and then mix it in with people that I know's music and stuff that they're working on as well.
Yeah, so I was honored to be on a show. It ran November through. It just ended. This clip of it. It was called Celebrity Court. It was hosted by Al Reynolds, and there were some great attorneys on there like Shatan Turner and Sean Carter and Brian Ross and a couple of other ones. And we would cover things that were in the media having to do with sports and entertainment, and It was nonstop. Like we could have called it the P. Diddy show. That's how much.
I saw that. I saw that. I did see that.
So it was a great show. And to everybody who's listening now, who's listened to that show, we are coming back to that on May 1st. It's going to be Tuesday and Thursday evenings, and it streams live on YouTube. But there's no reason why you shouldn't continue to watch this show every other Thursday at noon, because we love our audience and we love our people. But again, we are, as a society, we're so like tied to everything that these celebrities or that these people, or we love, and it's sad, and I hate to say it, but we love to see people succeed, and we also love to see people that have succeeded fail. And I don't know the rationale. I'm sure, my brother, who's a psychiatrist, could very easily, let us all know that. But at the end of the day, like, we love saying, oh my God, I remember the guy when he was this, or I remember the lady when she was this, and growing and all of this, like, and I know we talked about offline Gary V, right? He's a guy that just literally popped out of nowhere right around the COVID time. I'll admit, I was following the guy on LinkedIn since before he got big. Like, I'm actually connected with him. I don't think he can take on more connections anymore, but that's how long I know him, right? So that's great, and I love seeing his rise. I love seeing his climb, and to me, that's great. What I don't like seeing is when these people step into something that's not good, or do something that is not politically correct, or that goes against whatever is going on. And that's when I get hired, right? I get hired when people step in the proverbial dog shit and they need help. Hey, I'm here. I'd much rather be along for the ride on the ride up to keep you from stepping in that stuff. But hey, look, sometimes we learn from our mistakes, and other times we just make the same mistakes over and over and over and over. So with a wife and 6 kids, I am going to guess that you make mistakes, but you quickly learn from them. And I think that's something, that you like there, and we talked about it, that in order to have a successful relationship in life, be it a spouse, a business partner, an adult child, a cousin, a brother, a sister, whatever it is, right? Transparency, communication, time for each other. I think those are 3 huge things. So, Chris, how do you balance that, being a full-time dad, being a full-time entrepreneur, being a full-time husband, being a full-time all-around just great business guy and just great guy in general? Like, there's only 24 hours in the day. How do you balance all of that, Chris?
That is a good question. Well, the first thing that matters is that if your wife supports you and understands what you're doing, then it makes it easier to do the things that you want to do. And then, of course, you got to run some of it through her to make sure that we're both on the same page for what's going to be or not be. And then, to trust, my wife's advice and her consultation when she's telling me different things that, hey, I don't think about this, or, let's plan for this and stuff. I mean, it helps that we have 4 of the kids that are older, they take care of themselves. They're moved out of the house, and so they're kind of moving into the next phase of their life. So we do have more time for each other to do our thing. My job during the day, I get off at 3:30, so I do my work stuff during the day. I try to do any of the collective stuff downtown in the evenings or on the weekends. I also have a couple guys that work for me that cover the space when I'm not there. So I have a good team in place. So time management and, being able to be a good leader and communicator with the people in my entrepreneur life, my day job, and, my wife and family, so it's really about time management and communication, and really just not overstepping in certain areas to create conflict, so you learn trial and error, what works and what doesn't work.
So what have you found works best for you? I know for me, it's time blocking, right? I do things in 50-minute, either 25 or 50-minute increments. And I always build in that 5 minutes of overlap so that even if things go long, I can be there, or I build in 10 minutes of overlap if it's a 50-minute thing, so I could use a restroom, grab a drink of water, return a phone call, check out Instagram for 30 seconds for what's going on. What do you find has worked for you?
I mean, I definitely would say time blocking and scheduling and writing things down, to make sure that I have, my list at work. I don't really make a list after work, but in my mind, I plan out, like, there's a practice, there's a game, we have to do this holiday, there's a birthday. And then, I spend a lot of time, dating my wife and going places. So I always have that planned out, like 2 Fridays from now or whatnot. So I'm not going to plan anything on those days. So everything is, time management, blocking out time, lists, and just kind of making sure those things don't cross. And if they do, just like look at my phone real quick, respond to an email, and put it back in my pocket, keep doing what I'm doing, kind of a thing, So it's pretty crafty, but after so many years, you kind of just figure out where it becomes part of your routine, whether you want it to be or not,
Yep. So I'm going to give a shameless plug for myself, and this is my book. It's called Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. And when you said, you have the list and you have whatever, actually in about 30 days, closer to 40 days, volume 2 of the book is going to be coming out. It's going to be called More Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. But one of the things that I talk about in there is what I call my dump list. And that is the list of all the things that are here that are keeping me up at night that I can't forget. So what I do is I create that list. It could be on a piece of paper, like something like this, or it could be in a book that I carry with me. I actually, in one of here, I have a blank page in the book so I can take notes, but it's all the things that I don't want to forget. So I don't wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, snap, I forgot to send that email or do whatever. It's on that list. That's my reminder list. That's my to-do list. That's the list that I check when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed at night, when it's, so I keep that with me. So I call it my dump list. You call it your to-do or your organization list. So speaking about a dump, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a 30-second recess here so that we could have a quick commercial break. And when we come back in, I really want to talk to you about the space that you have, the 662 collective space, what you do with it, how people can book it, what they can check out, because I think it's kind of cool. Let me change. I think it's really cool, not kind of cool. So we're going to run for a quick 30-second commercial, and we'll be right back. Good back. 30 seconds on the nose. How you doing? This is Jason Weiss. You're here at the Ask Jason Weiss show. And once again, although I am an attorney, I am not your attorney for today. Nothing today constitutes legal advice. Should you seek legal advice, financial advice, or any other advice, consult an attorney directly. There is no attorney-client privilege here today. So I have with me, like I said, Chris Hare, and we are talking about the 662 Collective Art Gallery and Event Space. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So, Chris, tell us, first of all, where the 662 Collective Art Gallery is located, and then tell us a little bit about what it is and why you decided to do something like this. Because, as a father of 6 and a husband to 1 and someone who does buildings and constructions and all of this, it doesn't sound like you needed another thing to do, but I guess there's passion, right? So you got to follow your passion. So tell us about the 662 collective space, if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay. It's located in downtown Rockford at 331 East State Street. It's right in the heart of the downtown entertainment area near the river where a lot of activity goes on. So it's in a very prime location. A couple things is, one, it became a sort of a brick and mortar for the online store of the website. So I had already had an online store of items that were for sale. And then I decided that, I could make a store out of that particular, those particular items. I had already been involved with, collecting art from different people for this particular space, so I wouldn't have to go to IKEA and buy a bunch of stuff. I decided I might as well have all the walls be covered in art. And since I knew a bunch of artists, I started giving a wall space to individual artists. So if I got 5 or 6 different walls, there's 5 or 6 different artists. They can come in, take off what they want, put in new stuff. If they got another art show, they want to grab it real quick, they can come in, or they'll say, hey, I'm taking these pieces down and bringing in more pieces. Or one artist rotates out, we bring another one in. So it's a free art gallery for people to walk in when there's activity going downtown, and then they can, work their way to the back where there's a retail space that's where the vinyl records and vintage clothing and a variety of other miscellaneous things that they can purchase while they're in there. And then because of the art people who are, utilizing the space, then some of those artists can I use the space to do my own art show? And so that kind of started off where, man, you know what? I could probably just start renting this to artists who's not on the walls. And then from there on, it just kind of opened up different avenues where different people say, can I do a pop-up shop? I want to do a private showing. I want to do a paint, a sip and paint, all these different things that people want to do to use the space, because I have a big open space before you get to the back. So it just kind of then evolved into an event space for rent and became just like a hub, a variety of different, opportunities.
So let me ask you, you mentioned that, you put up art for artists and all of that. So if an artist is listening, and hopefully he or she or multiple artists are listening, and they have a piece of art that they would love to display, how can they facilitate that, and what's the cost, or what do you have to do in order to be able to say, yeah, my piece of art is hanging at 662 Collective?
So, the phrase, it's about who you know. So I do have a lot of people who send me messages on email and Instagram wanting to put their particular art on the wall. But being that I say it's a little more exclusive through the group of people that I know. And so I can't accept everybody's art. And then once somebody else gets their thing going, I really don't want to take that away from them unless they want to move it somewhere else. So it's pretty exclusive to be on the walls per se. There's other people that I've reached out to that I know personally, or that one of the guys is like, hey, let's talk to this person. They have 7 or 8 pieces we can fit in here. So to get on the walls, it's a little rough. It's a little exclusive, so to say. But if there's someone that wanted to rent the place, they can. We've taken down every single piece of art and put up somebody else's art in every single spot possible, so they could do a 2-day event. So if somebody wanted to utilize the space, I can give them a cheap rate and they can do it there, so they don't have to rent it out for a month, and they don't have to go sign a lease at a place. They can just, use my spot for a night or 2 nights or whatever it is that they want to do. So
I wouldn't say a cheap rate. I would say an affordable and a very reasonable rate, because we don't want to downgrade how amazing this is. Yes, it's very inexpensive. Yes, it's very reasonable, but nothing about your place, Chris, is cheap. And I needed to jump in there, so I apologize for jumping in, because, like I said, nothing is cheap. Now, you mentioned Instagram, and I know a lot of viewers follow on Instagram. Where can they find you on Instagram?
So we use the 662 Collective as our Instagram page, where we post our event flyers, and if we get new drops of clothes or vinyl records or things like that, we just randomly will post a lot more on the story than so. But there's still posts that go up when we do events. Like, I have a big event coming up next week, so we got some flyers and promo for that, for the spring art scene. That's a 2-day event that's put on, and there's like 40 venues that are part of it, and a little brochure comes out. Every venue has a number, and people just will get the brochure, and they'll just kind of go spot to spot for 2 days. And this will be my 5th time doing this particular spring art scene. Well, they do a fall and a spring, so this will be the 5th one total. So
that's really cool. It reminds me of, like what I went to the University of Florida, so they had, like Swamp Night and Gator Growl and the Gator Stomp, and you would go from bar to bar to bar. And this sounds like, you go from art studio to, art studio to art studio, a little glass of wine to sip while you're walking. Just be careful about drinking and walking. Not something we advise of, but, go ahead and consume very reasonably and responsibly, and check out some great art. And again, that's at 662 Collective, and that is right there in Illinois. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you do. So not only are you a collector of art, an admirer of art, and a husband and a dad and all of this, you're also a builder. Tell us a little bit about what you do, what you're building, and some of the fun projects that you were able to speak to me, in the studio beforehand about, because I want the listeners to know.
All right. So I grew up around a construction family. So I've been around 2x4s and tile and different construction stuff my whole life. So anytime I wasn't involved in entertainment, I was always in construction, particularly flooring for many years. I've been an installer, estimator, sales supervisor, project manager in the flooring industry before recently last year I applied to work at a larger commercial construction company called Slayton Construction that's based in Geneva, Illinois. And with this is a company that has projects going on in many different states, different size projects all over the place. The account that I handle is for a Hometown Veterinarian Partners, which is this woman who's building multiple different animal hospitals throughout the country. We recently completed one in Orland Park, Illinois, and St. Petersburg, Florida, and now currently have 6 going on right now, which is one in Canton, Massachusetts, St. Louis, Alpharetta, Georgia, the Minneapolis, Sarasota, and Naperville, Illinois. So that keeps me pretty busy, but I work at this great company. This is the first company I've worked for that wasn't owned by me or a family member. So to be able to jump into this particular outfit was a good move for me. These people are great. John Slayton is a great leader. When I had a conversation with this owner, I was like, I need to work here. And so his son works here, so I see their vision. It's a great team environment, and so it allows me to, have a good opportunity that's within my office to be able to have success with these projects. And so it's pretty fun. I got some really good people I work with, so it's awesome.
And I don't know many people on this planet can that say that they go to work and they have, it's pretty fun and they've got some stuff, especially somebody who's worked for himself for so many years to go ahead and throw in the keys and to, start, riding somebody else's vehicle. That takes a lot of trust and they must have impressed the heck out of you. I'm sure you impressed the heck out of them, but they must have impressed the heck out of you in order for you to say like, hey, I share your vision. I want in. And that's something that, a lot of us are looking at, right? It be politics, be it be personality, be it be investments. Like, hey, I see your vision. I share your vision. I want in. That's really cool. And not only do I want in, but this is what I can bring to the table to enhance and to make it better. That's even cooler.
Yeah, that is a situation.
And it's very hard to find that these days. A lot of people just, they'll look at you as, okay, you're an employee. Let's plug you into the machine and go. And, you're employee number 17. And what's your name again? Like that probably is not the right fit for someone like you or someone like me. For others, that works, right? I just want to go in, put my head down, do my work, and clock out at 5:00.
Yeah, I mean, that is the way it is. And I actually don't look at this as like a job. So I do like to come here. Matter of fact, I'm standing right now in what the owner built in the basement, which is you can't tell, but I'm standing in a golf simulation room that looks like a speakeasy. So that's how cool it is. Outside of that, that's in the basement of our headquarters in Geneva. So yeah, there's a great team of people here. And it's really fun to have a job that for me crossing over, it was perfect for me.
Look, and that's what it is, right? What's right for you now may not have been right for you 6 months ago, may not be right for you in 10 years, and may not be right for me forever. You just never know. And that's why, Baskin Robbins had 31 flavors, 31 flavors?
31, yeah.
31 flavors, because, out of those 31, you're going to find someone liking each flavor, and it's all good. So tell us a little bit about some future events and things going on at the 662 Collective. You did talk about the walking, art, and you go from spot to spot. But what are some things that listeners and people on Instagram should be paying attention for? Give us something cool, something that's coming.
Yeah, so starting May 16th, every Friday till the end of September is a thing they call the City Market in downtown Rockford, where there'll probably be anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people roaming around downtown with food trucks. And there's vegetables and fruit and all this stuff, but there's crafts and there's food and music. And so the businesses have an opportunity to take advantage of that. So I'll have DJs, live art. The first event on May 16th, I have artists doing caricatures like you can get at Great America. So that's something different we've never done. I have a DJ named DJ Billy Hendricks who will be DJing every Friday there. So that's pretty big for us. And then we do have a June 13th is Friday the 13th. We're doing a Friday the 13th art event. So that'll be kind of fun. That just coincidentally falls on that day. So we have some plans for that. And then there's some other just events that involve different DJs and different live artists that I keep mixing it up a little bit, on specific dates. I have a team of people. We're working on doing a potential like monthly whiskey tasting club, which is something that's kind of cool and different, kind of a private event where, we get different connoisseurs of whiskey and bourbon and figure out a way to have, an art, live music, and just this tasting, event. So that's another thing we're working on. And then it's pretty progressive. So, I mean, like today, tomorrow, someone will call me and we'll come up with something for different dates, try to do one big, cool internal thing per month. And then, with the other people that want to use the space, it just kind of keeps it moving.
Now, when did you start with the actual brick and mortar place?
It was September 2022.
Okay, so I couldn't ask you, have you seen any changes in people's coming out to events pre-COVID to post-COVID? But I'm guessing, at least here in Florida, right? Everybody was doing everything pre-COVID, post-COVID, all of that. We were the place that everybody came to during COVID because we were allowed to do things outside, and we were still doing festivals and tournaments and concerts. Do you think, just based on your business and what you've been doing, people are starting to come back out? Do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I don't even think about it anymore. I think because a lot of people let it go, but Illinois was definitely one of the states that had, tougher rules and regulations and stuff. And me and my wife, we would just go to Wisconsin. There really wasn't COVID there. So we could go to Lake Geneva. We could hit different cities up there where people weren't wearing masks and there wasn't all this extra rules, So for us, we just kind of avoided Illinois all in all. Drove to Wisconsin 30 minutes away or wherever it was that we had to go to, have a better time because Illinois was locked down. Not, Wisconsin wasn't like Florida. We said, gosh, we should just go to Florida. Let's just go to Florida. But our Florida was Wisconsin during COVID. So that's how we made it work. And I don't really notice it anymore. I just feel like people are back to doing their thing and it's not even a thing anymore. It's like a bad dream that happened.
Right. I kind of feel like in a professional setting, a lot of people have gotten accustomed to the Zoom platforms and the virtual and, like it's not as, let's have a meeting in my office, downtown Miami, and we need to do all this and everybody has to wear a suit and a tie and all this. In my profession, I find it more of, okay, look, let's all get in a virtual Zoom. We'll all throw on a jacket. I happen to be wearing long pants that goes with the jacket and everything today. But, a lot of times I'll be in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and I've seen that. So I like the fact that what you're doing is you're getting people to come into your place and they want to. It's not like, oh man, I got to go to this art show. It's kind of like, man, I get to go see this art up close and personal. Admittedly, I'm the type where, I'm not eating out at restaurants anymore. That doesn't mean I'm not bringing food in from restaurants that I love, but I like to be home. I like to be in front of my TV. I like to be, in shorts and a t-shirt. So, but I'm slowly finding that the rest of the world is going back to normal. And I find myself wanting to as well. And things like seeing great art and dealing with great people and checking out new artists and vinyls and platforms and all this kind of stuff, that's really cool stuff. So, one of the questions I have for you is, look, you're a man of many talents. You wear many hats, and you're all over the place. So, when you're driving from job site to job site, if you're listening to a book, are you, listening to a book or are you listening to music? Let me start that way.
Well, nowadays, as I've gotten older, I listen to podcasts typically. If I have to drive an hour each way, I will put on music in different playlists on Spotify, but I like to listen to podcasts for the most part. So I spend a lot
What
of
what
time doing that.
what's your go-to podcast, right? You're sitting in the car stuck in traffic and you want to listen to a podcast. Forget about the time restrictions. If it was just like, oh man, I wish I could listen to, what would it be?
So I'll go on to Spotify and I'll tap on podcasts and my top 8 at the top. I'm always looking to see if there's a blue dot to make sure that there's a new one. I'm looking for Theo Vaughn episodes. He's freaking hilarious. I like to listen to select Joe Rogan episodes. Not all of them, but some of them.
Okay.
I like to listen to Club Random with Bill Mayer. He's, kind of eccentric in some ways, but he has good interviews and he presses a lot of issues with different people that he interviews. I mean, obviously I listen to Gary Vee, so he's very inspirational
Yep.
and, you can learn a lot from him about business. So I try to mix it up a little bit, by
And,
going
and
from,
what kind of music? I guess you're a '90s on 9 guy. I'm gonna guess,
oh yeah.
and an '80s on 8, and a '60, maybe not a '60s on 6, but a '70s on '70s. So you're a guy that likes music, and I'm sure you could relate. My son just got he's borrowing a mixing board from one of his buddies. His buddy got a high end one, so my son's using it, and I have all this music on digital. That I took all my CDs, I put it all on digital, and I'm like, hey, Logan, you want this hard drive of music? He's like, Dad, I probably won't listen to most of the stuff that you listen to, but thanks for sharing. I'll check it out. And I come downstairs and he's listening to music. I'm like, see, you used the stuff from my hard drive. He's like, what are you talking about? This is like the music I'm listening to. And the music today is like, I sound like my dad. The music today is all our music from yesterday. It's mixed, it's dubbed, it's crinkled 4 times, and it's thrown in there. So my long-winded question is, what kind of music are you currently listening to?
So I definitely will listen to. I'll put on like a Sublime, Nirvana, or Red Hot Chili Pepper playlist, on Spotify. I'll go back to Leonard Skinner, Van Morrison. It just depends on what time it is and if the sun is out or not. When it starts to get warm, I might throw on Will Smith's "Summertime" to mix it up a little bit because it's a good song to listen to when the weather is getting ready to change.
Yep.
And I also, every now and then I'll go back to, an Eminem playlist or Tupac or something like that. So I definitely just keep it mixed. I mix it up quite a bit. I can't really listen to a lot of the new stuff. So, I'll even listen to 90s. The 90s thing will stay on, my playlist a lot as well too. So I definitely keep it,
Yeah, but I also feel like a lot of today's stuff is stuff that we listen to, right? It's sampled, it's put in there. There's some songs out there right now, that the other day I heard something and I'm like, oh my God, that's they're sampling from Black Sheep. So I had to go ahead and listen to an old Black Sheep album and that kind of stuff. So I can't believe we're getting towards the end of this show. This has been very educational. This has been very informative. And what you want to do, listeners, is you want to check out 662 collective 662online.com. You want to check out the 662 collective. And you want to reach out to Chris Hare 662 at gmail.com. If you're an up and coming artist and you want to be featured and you're lucky enough to get through to Chris, you never know, right? We could find the next Picasso or the next Tupac on this. So one last question, Chris. The streaming platform that you're watching something on these days, and what are you watching?
Okay, so that's a good question because I watch anything Taylor Sheridan, right? I mean, 1923, Yellowstone, Mayor of Kingstown, Lioness, Landman, anything Taylor Sheridan for sure. And anything Danny McBride. So I'm watching Righteous Gemstones.
Yep.
It's so hilarious.
Hilarious.
So anything he does from Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, all his shows are amazing. My wife and I, we are big into Severance and White Lotus and Black Mirror. So those are some good shows. So, we'll mix it up when it's, when there's one of those other seasons aren't going on, we'll find something like that to watch.
And I'm going to throw one in there that if you were an ER fan from the 90s, The Pit on Max was excellent. It was excellent. I really enjoyed it. I'm a season behind in White Lotus because they just finished, and I like to do it all in one swoop. And Black Mirror, I think they're coming out with, if they haven't already, a whole new season. So I'm excited for that one as well. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are going to end court today. And I thank you very much, Chris Hare, for being here today. Again, check out 662online.com. You will be very excited to check out the stuff, the up-and-coming artists. And if you are in the Rockford, Illinois, and just Illinois area, I strongly suggest going and checking out the 662 Collective. Chris, thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to having you on the show again, and best of luck in everything that you do. And sit tight with me, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day. Have a great Easter holiday. Make it a good Friday tomorrow. And for the streaming network and the rest of the crew, thank you so much for letting me be here today.